Welcome to Bits of Wisdom, offering insights on money, Bitcoin, and the world of exponential change. Hello, and welcome to Bits of Wisdom. This is episode 8 in our series on money, monetary policy, and Bitcoin. I'm Paul Rogers, and thanks for joining me. Okay, we're finally going to get to Bitcoin. In this episode, we're going to talk about the origins of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is engineered money as digital gold that's better than gold. And we'll talk about some of the major criticisms of Bitcoin. Wait a minute, hold a second. Okay, so this is what crypto looks like, right? A bunch of guys in hoodies talking a bunch of stuff that doesn't seem to make sense. Well, let's go back to the origin of Bitcoin. In 2008, an anonymous person or entity that goes by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto wrote a white paper and distributed it to a list of fellow computer cryptologists and scientists describing a currency based on certain immutable principles and computer and cryptography protocols. Now, he didn't come up with a lot of this, but he did assemble it in a coherent fashion and added some novel protocol elements that some of the most well-known and respected computer science and cryptology professionals had been working on for decades. And Bitcoin was born. Wait a second. This doesn't work for me. Okay, that's better. Because you don't have to be a cryptologist or have a hoodie to understand Bitcoin and its use. Now, fortunately for you, I'm not going to go into all the details of how it works. Much of it is way over most people's heads, including mine. But so is how a cell phone works, and yet I sure as heck know how to use one and that I can't live without it in today's world. So Bitcoin was born during the 2008-2009 financial crisis that we talked about. As the governments were bailing out banks, Bitcoin was created as a pretty clear response and as a new form of money that had many advantages over fiat currency. The objectives were a decentralized currency that was not subject to manipulation by any one person, government, or agency. A software technology that sets out an immutable protocol for the creation of a finite amount of Bitcoin. A system of checks and balances to ensure the integrity of the system and a recording of transactions in a blockchain that was transparent and available to all. Scarcity was built into the protocol so that there could be no printing of money, no creation of more Bitcoin beyond the 21 million specified in the protocol. And by the way, most of the total amount of Bitcoin, about 19 million, have already been created in a process called mining that we'll talk about later. And since this was digital money, it could be moved anywhere at nearly the speed of light on Earth. All this sounds a little mysterious, a little sketchy, maybe a little like BS. Well, nobody believed in most tech sci-fi stuff until it became reality and proved itself. Now, if you're old enough to remember print newspapers, the ones with comic strips, there was a comic strip, Dick Tracy. He had a phone watch. Well, that seemed crazy at the time, but now we have the Apple Watch. 13 years later, Bitcoin is still around. Oh, and by the way, it's a nearly $1 trillion asset class and just happens to be the best performing asset class over the last decade. Yes, beating all those high-flying technology stocks you and I both wish we had owned at the start. And in 2021, an entire country, El Salvador, adopted it as its legal currency, and I think more will probably do so also. Now, you can ignore it, but you do so at your own peril. It may or may not be for you, but you do owe it to yourself, your family, and your heirs to learn about it. Even before all the things that I've outlined in the last few episodes, does it make any sense to you that the government can continually spend more money than it brings in every year in taxes, that it's sending checks to people of money it doesn't have, that our national debt is over $29 trillion or $89,000 per citizen or $237,000 per taxpayer, that we keep having crises after crises that get worse and worse than the last one, and the government and the Fed's response is always to spend more money that they don't have, that the rich keeps getting richer during the pandemic. And again, there is absolutely nothing wrong with being wealthy, but millions of Americans have lost their jobs or their businesses. Does it make any sense that the average cost of a house is way out of reach of most first-time home buyers? And that your money sitting in any safe account at the bank is losing money to inflation? That you can't actually save money, you have to invest it just to stay ahead. Now that you consider that, just coincidentally, as the money supply grew 25% or so in a year, so did asset prices like real estate and the stock market. That if you can't save money, you have to invest it. So you'd rather put it in real estate or stocks, and perhaps that's actually why they're going up, or a big portion of it. Not necessarily because that on average all the companies are so much more profitable. Sure, some are, but not all of them. Their valuations are just going up because, as one famous hedge fund manager, Ray Dalio, said, cash is trash. The government and the Fed are actively manipulating the economy, the money supply, behavior, and our psychology, so that common sense is quite uncommon. Now, if you're a politician, you stay in power by not screwing things up too much. And if you can promise people things that someone else is going to have to pay for, why wouldn't you? So, what's one way of looking at Bitcoin? It's digital gold. Remember when we discussed why gold was used as money? Well, Bitcoin is gold for the times, the digital age we live in. Bitcoin has many characteristics that potentially make it better gold than gold. Let's look at a chart of the returns over various periods of digital gold, Bitcoin, versus stocks and physical gold. It's pretty convincing evidence that a lot of people think that Bitcoin is a better store of value than gold or stocks. Right now, the use of Bitcoin isn't to buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but it can act as a far better store of value over the long term than the US dollar. Now, you may be thinking what many critics have said. Bitcoin isn't backed by anything. It's worthless. It's just a Ponzi scheme. Well, knowing what you know about our monetary system, can you tell me exactly what is backing the US dollar, or any other currency for that matter? Nothing but the government's full faith and credit. In short, our confidence and agreement to use the dollar. That's it. Others have said Bitcoin is worthless. Well, the US dollar and most currencies throughout the world keep being worth less due to inflation, while the value of Bitcoin is going up tremendously. Remember, money is an agreement between the people who use it, and a growing number of people and major institutions seem to agree that it has more and more value, and thus the price is going up. Let's look at an over 10-year period as of 2021 compared to gold and stocks. Hands down, it blows everything away. Worth is the value that people assign to something. Why is a Picasso worth tens of millions? Because people assign that value. And when a groundswell of people, globally and organically, it just rose up, start assigning a greater value to something, it's worth more. As Stanley Druckenmiller, a famed investor and hedge fund manager, said, Bitcoin is like anything else. It's worth what people are willing to pay for it. And if people see it as a technology of money, they're willing to pay more to be part of that system. Others have said it's a Ponzi scheme. Now, the people who say that don't understand what a Ponzi scheme is, really, and don't understand what Bitcoin is. Because in a Ponzi scheme, some shyster is running the show and has designed a system intentionally, all right, to obtain profits from older investors by taking money from newer investors. No one person or group is running or controlling Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has just grown organically because more people are opting out of traditional assets and traditional systems in favor of this new technology. Now, I don't know what the price of Bitcoin will be tomorrow, the end of the year, or the end of the decade, but I do know that it's a technology that offers solutions to many of the problems and failings in our current system. As Michael Saylor said, Bitcoin is a bank in cyberspace, run by incorruptible software, offering a global, affordable, simple, and secure savings account to billions of people that don't have the option or desire to run their own hedge fund. So, if you're looking for an affordable, simple, and secure savings mechanism, you need to take Bitcoin seriously. In the next episode, we'll go into some more details of Bitcoin, such as the blockchain, the process of mining, and what makes Bitcoin's secure, finite, and decentralized system of money. We're nearly at the end of this series. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the like button and come back for the next 2 episodes where we really dig deeper into Bitcoin. Again, this is Bits of Wisdom. I'm Paul Rogers. Thanks for joining me.